question. It was actually for you, and maybe I'm afraid to open this window, but we'll try it. The IEB report talked about in 1986 you pulled out of New Jersey. You'd lost faith in the New Jersey political environment. Can you tell us how that faith was lost?
It had to do with the local government in Atlantic City. It was, and I fear may even today, I'm not sure about the moment, but every year that I was there, one or two of the politicians went to prison, year after year. These flaky people that had no conception of the opportunity being presented to the community. The state of New Jersey turned its back on Atlantic City, with the exception of a couple of senators who tried very hard. But gaming became legal in New Jersey by accident. The first time they tried to license it, it failed. And the people up north who didn't like South Jersey in that respect thought it was over. And the second time that the referendum went on the ballot, nobody paid attention, and the proponents got it passed. Well, Brendan Byrne was the governor, and it was almost resentful. The establishment almost resented what happened in South Jersey. And so a process began where everything was left to the local politicians in Atlantic City, a group of unsophisticated, venal people in many respects. Year after year, prison term after prison term, off they trotted for misconduct in public office. And you could just see that there was no plan of development. There was no intelligent exchange. I myself appealed to several governors to change that and sort of got patted on the back. Yeah, thanks, Steve. We had the best place there. We had the smallest casino. We had the most revenue by far than even the bigger places. But you could see that Atlantic City was going nowhere, that it was going to end up where it is now, unfortunately. And it had a chance to be a great beginning. It had the ocean, it had a monopoly on the eastern seaboard of the United States to be a great destination resort. But the political naivete, the political venality, the lack of sophistication of the government of New Jersey until Governor Christie came along, the lady governor.
Governor Whitman.
Came along. Nobody cared about Atlantic City. Christie Whitman tried to light the fire again. And that's how the marina and the tunnel got built. There have been books written about that. But unfortunately, it was too little too late. And we all know what position that community is in. And now gaming is spread everywhere in the eastern seaboard, and I fear that maybe Atlantic City lost its moment. Here in Boston, we've got a whole different opportunity. But that's why I left. I could see where it was going, and a guy came and made an offer to pay a lot of money for the company, and I was thrilled to leave.
I would point out, Mr. Wynn, that it was our Commissioner Cameron who put a lot of those local politicians in the slammer.
Commissioner Cameron knows what happened there. I didn't exaggerate, did I, Commissioner?
A lot of what you said has merit, sir.
They kept going to prison. It was the damnedest thing you ever saw.
Imagine if we had the Chinese rules. That's it. Thanks.
If we had the Chinese rules, I mean, Commissioner Cameron would be executing people. Is that what you Were you finished, Commissioner Stebbins?
Yes, I am.
I had a few questions, and thank you all for your time and patience. The PEP processes that you described, do the gaming promoters have the same regs, or those only apply, and practices, or does that apply only to yours?
It's the same instruction applies to both us
It
and
is the same.
bankers,
Okay,
correct.
good. There is a reference on page 94, some of which is blacked out in the redacted version, but it's a reference to what seemed to be a great many Bank Secrecy Act violations. And I didn't know what to, you've got the unredacted, seen it somewhere. Do you have that, or do you?
Yeah. Does the paragraph start regulatory infractions?
I only have the redacted. Oh, yes, it's in that section.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the second,
I think
third,
that's on 93.
oh, it's 94 on mine, okay. It just appeared to be, I couldn't understand what to make of it. It seemed like it was significant, but has not been mentioned.
Oh, this is, that refers to the audit?
Yeah.
I don't know, where from. 0.5% of all filings of that year, no fine was imposed. And so, you know what a violation is? Is someone took a picture of someone's passport and they forgot to fill in their middle initial. If someone forgot to write the exact date. So the way that people in this industry look at this is the percentage of all transactions, which were what was right and what was wrong. So 0.5% were found to have some kind of, in their vast majority, stenographic type errors.
Okay.
They would have imposed a fine if they found anything.
Which they did not. Right, okay,
It's excruciating.
okay. This was just out of curiosity, on my page 31 of the redacted version, in the middle, there is talks about one of the steps that Wynn takes that's beyond those required by the DICJ of performing background checks of the gaming employers, of the employees of the gaming promoters. Does MGM do that as well? Do you remember? Including of the AML coordinator.
I think the answer is no, but I'd rather hold off. I can report back to the commission, but I want to be sure.
I can't answer the
I think
question.
they do the key employees, but I'll refer back to
All
the
right, well, I
commission. I just
just-
don't want to say anything unless I'm absolutely 100% sure.
Okay. It's meaningful if it is something which is distinctive. Can you, this would be maybe Mr. Shalamesh, sure, can you characterize, I think Commissioner Stebbins or somebody was getting at this, but when you tell us that the DICJ does background checks of the gaming promoters, and that pretty much stands as the sine qua non of whether these folks are right to do business with, can you characterize those background checks compared, for example, to the kind of background checks that you folks are having to go through now? Where on the continuum of, quote, background checks does the DICJ background checks fit?
I can't speak for them, but given they have access to law enforcement and actually have an enforcement division similar to yours that has police powers, I expect they can do a fairly extensive both Macau and regional check on the gaming promoter license applicants and the other people who fall within their purview, like the 5% shareholders. But I can't speak for them. That'd probably be something you could discuss with them.
I don't know, Jim, do you have anything?
Yeah, I agree with what Jay just said. They have all the resources that an agency like that would have.
Do people fail, do some promoters fail the background checks?
You would have to ask,
You
I
don't
don't know
know.
what the ratio is on that. But I can also tell you that the background that we then do encompasses not only a lot of the investigative resources they have, but we also have the ability to check both internationally and in the U.S. So and a good example of that was we had, it wasn't a bad issue, but we had an applicant or somebody that wanted to be licensed. We couldn't corroborate where this individual had gotten married, and it was in another Asian country, and we had to dig down pretty deep to confirm and corroborate what this person was alleging on the application. So it wasn't anything that was egregious or salacious. It was just something that we make sure we confirm all the information thoroughly. And of course, the DICJ, to answer your question, does a very, very nice job also. But they do it with a lot more resources officially than we do.
Right, okay, thank you. This one is just a little bit theoretical, and maybe it's for Mr. Wynn. By all accounts, as best we can tell, and a lot of time and money has been spent, your compliance procedures seem, by the upshot of this investigation, to be quite buttoned up. I don't think there can be any question about that. But I'm a little bit puzzled by the makeup of the compliance committee. You have Governor Miller, who, again, by all accounts, is a very strong personality and a very capable personality for this role. But the other two members, so a majority, are executives of the company. They're staff, essentially. And I think, as I've begun to learn a little bit more about this, it's a little more standard operating procedure to have your compliance committee be made up at least of a majority of outside people, and certainly not of staff, for reasons which you can well understand. And I'm curious why you do it that way, since it is kind of obvious that another practice might make more sense, at least optically.
Interesting point you just made. Very much the same kind of reasoning one would say, for example, that a board of directors of a public company should be made of outside directors, not just of management. Trouble with that is this. Compliance in a casino is a technical, full-time job. I have to say, sir, that I believe that the only way it can actually be done well is with full-time, trained people, totally familiar with the nuance of the operation of the casino. No matter how reputable someone may be as an outsider, they could never have the kind of continuity, the kind of intimate relationship with the regulatory process that's necessary to run a casino in a tight way. So the obvious counterpoint is, yeah, but aren't the people on the inside those that are very well may be the most earliest, those that may be compromised, that would drop the ball, so to speak, or be careless in compliance? Well, that's the job of management. That's the job of people like the board of directors. If our technically trained, intimately acquainted employees who really know how all the jazz happens in a casino, if you really know how to watch it 24/7, you need full-time people to watch it 24/7, because the shenanigans and the jazz that goes on in a casino is unrelenting. There's too much money around. So you got to have very, very tight 24/7 surveillance and control of the process in compliance issues. Now, if it's true that insiders are less qualified to do this, then sooner rather than later, this system would erupt in failure. And a guy like Bob Miller, Governor Miller, would know about it. And an entirely different staff would have to be installed. But instead, sir, our experience has been that we don't have trouble with compliance because we follow this notion of highly trained, full-time employees whose sole paycheck is based upon their ensuring compliance. They have an entirely different perspective than the revenue folks, the salesmen, so to speak, in the company. I personally wouldn't know how to approach this with an outside person. If I had Commissioner Cameron, a long-standing woman of law enforcement, how much compliance can I get from someone like that if it's a part-time employee? Unless it's full-time, even Commissioner Cameron's long experience wouldn't mean much when applied to the intricacies of day-to-day shenanigans in a casino. So we'd need Ms. Cameron full-time. So she wouldn't be an outsider anymore.
She's busy.
She'd be an insider. So inevitably, we get to specialization. And I guess, Chairman, that's my answer.
Another thing that occurred to me, Mr. Chairman, while I was wondering about this, is that if there's a serious issue, it's going to get kicked upstairs by Bob Miller over just Bob Miller's head to a committee of the board, as we heard in the story that Mr. Wynn told us earlier.
Which is substantially made up of outsiders.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How else could we do it, though?
Yeah.
Really?
Well,
Has it occurred to you what our better approach would be?
Well, we've talked about this with other applicants, and, you know, there's many ways to skin a cat, and I'm sure there's no absolute right or wrong here. What you were describing to me was the staff role. There's a critical need for full-time, very experienced staff people. A committee role, like any board committee, maybe could be made up of people whose perspectives are independent. And, you know, you're the committee chair, the committee oversees the staff, and you don't lose any of the authority and the power and the expertise that all those staff people have. but there is a committee of independent folks sitting there, at least two of the three. I leave, as I say, I think everything we can tell is that your compliance operation works well. So
It's not broke.
one way to look at it is don't fix if it ain't broken. But these things surprise us, as we all have learned, in our lives. And your anticipatory approach, in terms of anticipating what structure will best protect you and the public interest, might be worth thinking about. I
Chairman-
leave it at that.
Chairman Crosby, I just have one observation to make is, we've thought about that, and we've talked about a lot internally. And as a lawyer who talks to lots of other lawyers and watches corporate governance developments all the time, that's what I do. The composition of our compliance committee, as dominated by management, is something that we've thought about. But I will tell you, if you look at us and you look at our peers in the industry, is we have had fewer issues of really busted up compliance than most anyone. And I think it's because from top to bottom, we have experts like Jay and Jim who are dedicated every single day and every single minute. We also have a lot of them. And they're pretty independent-minded people. And so we feel like providing a culture that says you have access to independent people, you have access to experts, but you must be experts, has served our company well so far.
When Stern came to work, when Larry introduced me to Jim, I said, Jim, here's how it works here. You get to look at this stuff. If you don't like what you see, act on it. If you're not satisfied, go to Governor Miller. You do not have to come to me. Those are the terms of your employment. Let's get it straight. We're alone in the room. He's sitting here and can confirm this. It's real simple. If you think that something is out of line here in terms of compliance, change it. You don't need my permission. I'd appreciate knowing if you thought something was so bent that it needed straightening. I'd like to be informed about it after the fact. But you don't need my assent. And if you're not satisfied, go to Bob Miller. You don't have to come to me. You won't be going over my head. I want to sleep at night, because sure as hell, if anything goes wrong, I'm the one that's going to get blamed. My name's on the sign, so I'm going to take the rap. Don't let it happen. You're not doing me a favor. We do things a certain way here. Your job is to make sure we stay on the straight and narrow best you can. Now, that's the philosophy that's guided this company as it's grown over the years. It was a philosophy at Mirage Resorts, which we built from a little thing, the Golden Nugget on Fremont Street with no rooms, to the thing that we sold to MGM. And there's only one way to run the business. If the right people are there and they understand the ground rules, they will do the right thing, inside, outside, independent or not. It's a question of what kind of message they get from the top, the board of directors, the chairman, and the rest. And the way to judge that is the history of the company. And I guess there's more than one way to skin that cat, Chairman. But it's a technical business, and stuff happens late at night. On Sunday morning at 5 a.m. in that kind, and the people have to be on it tight. It's an inside kind of challenge if you're going to be victorious. So,
Thank you. I have one last question. Would you, Mr. Wynn, explain the context and the recipient and the request and the strategy of the $125 million contribution to the, whatever it was, Macau Foundation of something or other? That's one that's on his face, looks a little funny. Our investigation didn't suggest that, but I'd be interested in hearing your description of how that came about, what that was about.
from the very beginning, when we received the concession, I recognized, is my microphone working properly? I recognized that in order to be successful, we just couldn't be an American company in Macau. We had to be part of the community. And the ability to assimilate or to be considered a really good neighbor, for people in Macau to say, boy, we're glad they came. This round eye is okay. We're glad they came. I had to get our company integrated in the community. And that was all about our employees. So the first thing that happened was that we had a chance to buy a wonderful Ming Dynasty vase, which I bought at auction and donated to the museum. But I was really looking for a way. Our history in Las Vegas is we've been one of the main supporters of education for 40 odd years, almost 46 years in the state of Nevada. We started communities and schools. We started after school All-Stars. One of my board members, Elaine Wynn, is a national chairman of after school of communities and schools, which is 14,000 volunteers in 28 states, 1,500,000 kids, the nation's largest dropout prevention program. It's here in Boston. And Elaine and I are the largest endowers of that program privately. We've always been an education company. So I would say to Edmund Ho, the chief executive officer, Edmund, I really am looking for the right way to really play a role in the community. And he would say to me at our monthly or semi-monthly meetings, Steve, you have to wait for the right moment. He speaks perfect English. At the time, he was the chairman. It's Fernando now, the man I described earlier that has the PhD in public health. Fernando would say, you have to find the right moment. It'll occur, so we'll see. Well, time went by, and then, a few years ago, Hu Jintao, then president of China, and the chairman of the standing committee of the Central Committee of the Communist Party, which means he's the boss in China. Hu Jintao, his picture was in all the newspapers in Macau, and they had annexed in Guangdong province 400 odd acres of Guangdong province and added it. We're in the process of adding it to Macau, which is a small place. Well, that was a big deal. Hu Jintao, there he was, taking his picture with Fernando Choi and Edmund Ho and the woman who was the Minister of Education for the People's Republic of China. The picture was in all the papers, and I get the clippings every day electronically of what's going on in Macau when I'm in America. And there they were, and they were announcing a new university that was going to be the pride of South China. And there was the president of China with a shovel, standing next to the two leading politicians in Macau. A week later, I was in Macau, and I saw Edmund. I said, it's a big deal with the university. He says, oh, it's a very big deal, Steve. They're going to spend $1 billion. It's going to be the pride of this part of China. I said, this would be a great place for us to be involved. He says, it would be an excellent place since you're so interested in education. I said, well, maybe we can get involved. He said, I'll introduce you to the rector. That's the name of the president over there. He says, he's a Chinese guy from around here, but he's been at Texas A&M for the past 10 years, and I brought him back. Why don't you meet with him and discuss some of the plans? It's very ambitious. They're going to have 80 buildings. They're going to have 10,000 students right away. Really? He says, we're going to build a tunnel from Macau under the water, because it's by the corner of Henson Island, separated by several hundred meters of water. We're going to build a tunnel so there won't have to be a border control. One tunnel for pedestrians and bicycles, one tunnel for cars. Really? So I met the rector. Very interesting man, spoke perfect English, of course, like most Chinese, and we got friendly, and it occurred to me that this was really our moment. This would be a chance for us to really make a statement in the community. Now, at this point, I have to put it in perspective. I said that I'm thinking I'll give them $10 million a year for the next 10 or 12 years. We're making $110 million a month there. So $125 million is a month of the business. 1 month to play a major role in the development of that community, to send a strong message about our commitment. Last July, that was 2.5 years ago. This past July, I was there for my monthly visit, and the rector called up and said, Steve, I'm going to come get you and whoever you want to bring with you. I have my stepson with me. I want to show you. I went in a bus in July. I went through a tunnel that looked like Callahan or Ted Williams. I came out of the tunnel 30 months later, in case you want to know about China commissioners, And there, in front of me, where there was dirt, was 80 buildings, all connected with corridors so the kids don't have to carry an umbrella. Even the fire station was a architectural beauty, designed by the guy who did the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. 80 buildings in 30 months. And they're matriculating students this month, the first 2,000, and the rest, the other 8,000 in spring. And they had a lecture hall that had 1,500 seats, and the whole back of the lecture hall was a clear story with glass. There's a fly loft above the stage and a trap room below for a lift. It's a full-on Broadway theater with 1,500 seats. And the rector invited me to make a business lecture to be the first one in February. I'm thrilled to be supporting that university. I found a spot for our company to make that gesture. My directors in America were enthused about it. My directors in China were enthused about it. Even what's his name, Okada was enthused about it. But he only wanted to give it to him for 5 years. I wanted to give it to him for 10. And make the first one 25 million. Okada voted against it. All the other board members in both companies voted for it. And then Okada insisted at being there for the groundbreaking and taking his picture with Fernando Troy. So that's how we got involved with the university. A great opportunity. I'm very proud. And I'm hoping to get involved with the company in a number of ancillary support initiatives in the community. It's very important whether you're in Boston or in Macau. You have to become a good neighbor. You have to take a real interest in the community. First of all, because it's the key message you send to the staff. If the people that work for you think it's a high-class thing to work for the company, that you care about the community, then they feel good about working there. And the minute the employees feel that it's an increase in their self-esteem to be working for you, you've harnessed the energy of the universe. You've cracked the atom. That's more important than money. So our role in the community is very important to the people that work for us. I've noticed that in Atlantic City, where we're the employer of choice. The newspaper in Las Vegas said, where's the best place to work in Las Vegas? They hired a big outside consulting firm. We won, going away. And I do that not because I'm an altruist or that I'm particularly liberal. I do it because it's good business. And so that university donation was something I had been looking for. I was hungry to get into that. I had the money, that's for sure. I mean, we're going to make $1.3 billion this year. More, depending on how we end up in the next few weeks. I mean, think of that. The investment was $1.5 billion. We brought $5 billion or $6 billion home. We've reinvested it in Macau, reinvested it in Las Vegas. Maybe we'll invest it in Boston. China's been fabulous for us.
Right. All right, thank you, Mr. Wynn. I don't have any other questions. Any other commissioners? No, I don't. Do you have any redirect, Governor, or cross?
No, sir.
Yeah, so would the applicant like to make a closing statement? Or did you just do that?
I did. It was a good question to start it on.
Thank you, all counsel. With that, we will conclude this portion of the suitability proceeding. The commission will deliberate about the matter in private and issue a written decision. The proceeding at this point, however, remains open. If at any point during deliberations the commission determines that further testimonial or documentary evidence is desirable, it may send notice of such to the applicant and provide instructions as to how to proceed.
Question.
Sir.
How long does the deliberation last on suitability?
Well, as long as it takes, but we will start possibly this afternoon, and we're scheduled to do it tomorrow. We expect a written decision, generally it's like in the week to 10 days.
Oh,
Right, that's sort of generally how it's been. We'll come to a decision and then submit it in writing rather than announcing it orally. Further, all applicants, of course, have a continuing duty to provide any updated information to the commission and to the Bureau. It is now December 16, 2013 at 2:45, and we will temporarily adjourn.